And for more, let's bring in the New Rochelle School Superintendent, Laura Feijoo. And Laura, thank you for joining us. And first of all, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, thank you. I have almost completely recovered, so I'm doing well.
Give an idea, because obviously people see the numbers, they see the pictures from inside ICUs. For a person who went through it, the range of emotions, obviously you had to make the difficult decision, like so many school superintendents, to close the schools. You had to worry about the kids and all the uncertainty that would happen. But then also, I'd imagine you have to wonder, A, how you came in contact with it, and B, if, God forbid, you may have spread it inadvertently. Talk about the range of emotions when you first felt ill and then you found out, in fact, you were positive.
Sure. So just in terms of closing schools, it is very stressful because you know how much kids depend on school, not only for food, but interaction, for learning, for a sense of community, for a sense of their normal day. And so we really felt it was important to keep schools open as long as possible, because if everyone else was moving in the community, and kids would be safer in school. So that sort of takes a toll. We working, 20-hour days to try to make sure things were in place for kids. And initially, I just felt like I was run down just from working so much and being out. I had been outside for a bit of time. And so I felt just a little bit run down. And then some of my cabinet said I should get tested, just because New Rochelle was the center of things. And since I was exhibiting some symptoms, people were worried about me, but I didn't feel more than a common cold. But I went to go get tested, and I just kept persevering. I think I would have what people would consider a mild case of it, being tired, achy, coughing, headache, that kind of thing. And then ultimately I was tested on Monday, and then on last Saturday, I learned that I did actually test positive, and that's when I sent the news to the community about it.
Thankfully, neither your husband or your kids have it, but for a lot of people wondering the unknown, because there's so much that's still unknown about this virus, and the things we originally thought that really only largely seniors could have really had serious, maybe health risks attached to it. We've learned since that's hardly the case. I got to imagine the uncertainty must have been really tough here to navigate.
It was, especially being in the house with my family, but I will say that I followed to the letter of any guidance I was given in terms of being in my own room. I have the ability to have a separate room from everyone else. I've been using a completely separate bathroom. I've stayed mostly in that room for that period of time. I even have my own silverware and dishes that I wash separately from the family, so that there's no chance of them catching it. The hand washing and all of those things I followed strictly. And, I would think that that's part of the reason I didn't give it to other people, but also my board president that I spent days with prior to my testing, or prior to the day we closed school, she tested negative. So it's a little disconcerting, because you hear all the stories about people getting it that originally were thought not to be able to get it, just carry it. And then you have examples like this where, I didn't pass it on to people who were very close to me.
And in fact, before you found out you were positive, and you knew that the schools were going to close very shortly, you were efforting to get laptops out, I understand, to some of the kids in New Rochelle. But as I understand, none of those kids have subsequently been tested or been positive at all for the virus, correct?
So according to Westchester County Department of Health, I had to notify people from March 12th, which was the date that I had symptoms. I had been giving out laptops on March 11th, so I wasn't symptomatic, and so therefore we didn't necessarily notify individuals that they had to be quarantined for the 2 weeks. So I don't know that anyone was, that I was contagious on that day, or that anyone contracted the virus. I mean, on the 11th, because I didn't have to notify anyone. But, I did notify everyone on the 12th, including 3 schools that I went to, my entire cabinet, my entire Board of Education, our district's attorney. Those are the people who were subsequently quarantined for the 12th through the 26th of March.
Laura, let me pivot more to the schools now, because like a parent, like many parents out there, my kids are starting to do the remote learning as well. I got a feeling that for good reason, because this isn't how we were built, are schools kind of figuring this out on the fly as to how to remotely teach students when that was never the model, at least in the United States, that we largely used? Certainly for, kids, K through 12, this isn't, how we teach kids. What is your sense? How prepared were we for this?
So I think it has large implications for maybe the future on what we learned and what we did during this period of time on remote learning, and how that qualifies as time with students and contact time with students. There's a lot to be learned from this forced period of education. But I will say that at least for the City School District of New Rochelle, we were pretty well prepared with Google Classrooms. We have Google Classrooms in many, if not all of our classes, from upper elementary school straight through high school. So the concept of posting things online, making content available online, making links to information available through Google Classroom, that is a very solid and very widespread practice in New Rochelle. So for that, we were set up. For some teachers using Zoom or Instagram or other technologies to synchronously interact with kids, there's something to be gained from that and learned from that during this experience where we're doing it every day or periodically. And we're leaving that up to teachers as to whether or not their content or curriculum or something that they're teaching requires them to be synchronous. I know from my own kids, even being linked to a particular video or something that was taped earlier where they can go back to when their teachers are doing a lesson is helpful for them to understand the content and ultimately demonstrate that they are proficient in the content area. And that's what we're really focused on now. Kids demonstrating their proficiency in the standards and in the tasks they're being asked to do. So it is an interesting time in education.
Laura, schools, and you know this better than I do, aren't just classrooms and teachers. There's school lunches for a lot of kids. They rely on that for 1 or 2 meals, probably the ones, especially on the lower end of the economic spectrum, they rely on. Also, you got counselors, you got a bunch of other things. Give an idea about some of the things that concern you with the school being shuttered beyond the obvious, things that the general public may not realize that kids rely on schools for.
So certainly for food, we set up 6 distribution sites in the City School District of New Rochelle where we're handing out bags of breakfast and lunch in a bag. Some sites are open from 9 to 4 to make sure we're accommodating families that may still be working. And some sites are 9 to 12, and we're distributing a good number of meals. So food is certainly important. Routines, just students' routines, interacting with caring adults, in school, other students. That routine of engagement, this is difficult for students and children to be in their house and not interacting in the same way, social, emotionally, connection to other kids. They're missing a lot of things in their year, especially for our terminal grades, our 5th graders and our 8th graders, and certainly our seniors, those opportunities that are once in a lifetime opportunities, school plays and things like that. These are times when kids may become sad, missing the things that they count on and they really enjoy in school. And we have, to the degree we have great counselors and support staff in schools, we are reaching out to students to try to keep as much connection and conversation with them as possible.
Just advice for parents who are now trying to navigate this. There's a palpable sense from the kids that this isn't obviously like the real thing, and there in many cases there's not the same testing, the same measurements that go into a standardized testing, for example, won't be there at the end of the year. Would you advise parents, don't let the kids do this in sweats in a tee, or do you say the kids got enough to worry about right now, let them back off a little bit? What kind of direction would you give parents trying to figure this out?
So I would certainly say set a routine. Set a routine, let kids get up at a normal time, let them get their work done at a normal time. If they can get it done a little earlier or more quickly than usual, set up opportunities for the family to be together, to do something you've always wanted to do, engage in activities you normally wouldn't because you're all at home working on that. Set aside time to connect. It's very easy for everybody to be in their room doing stuff. But I think the routine is important, and even building that routine to have family time, game time, card time, engaging in a project you always wanted to do but wished that you could stay home for a week to do. Those are the kinds of things that now's the opportunity to make this, when we look back 6 months from now and say, well, there was bad, but look how much good came from being home and being together and having the opportunity to have a staycation a little bit. So that would be, there's always a silver lining to something. And I think spending time with the family more than I would have ever been able to had I been going to work every day is a little opportunity every day.
Laura, I am glad you're feeling better. Thank you so much. And I know, like everybody, you'd like a return to normalcy like your students would as well. But thank you for making time for us today.
Happy to talk to you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.